Hello English learners! For this video, I'm going to be teaching you the difference between active voice and passive voice and when to use them. Starting with active voice. So what is active voice and when is it used? In the active voice, the subject of the sentence performs the action. It's important to note that emphasis is placed on the subject, meaning that the subject holds importance or is known. Now for this sentence structure. The sentence structure that we use for the active voice is subject, followed by verb, followed by object. Now for some examples, just to give you a better understanding. My sister baked a delicious cake. Let's take a look at the structure of the sentence. My sister is the subject, so it's going to come first. She is the one performing the action, followed by our verb, which is baked. And then lastly, we have the object of the sentence, which is a delicious cake. The teacher explained the lesson clearly. Let's take a look at that sentence structure. So the teacher is our subject, explained is our verb, and then the lesson is the object, which is receiving the action. So look at another example. The company launched a new product last week. The company is the subject of the sentence, so it's going to come first. It's the active voice. Launched is the verb of the sentence. A new product is the object. We're going to look at one more example for the active voice. The students completed their assignments on time. Again, the subject comes first. So the students is the subject. They performing the action. Completed is the verb and assignments is the object. Now, let's look at the passive voice. Notice how the sentence structure is going to change. In the passive voice, the subject of the sentence receives the action. Remember the difference. In the active voice, the subject is performing the action. So this time we are putting emphasis on the object rather than the subject. Maybe we don't know who or what performed the action, or it's not important. So now for the sentence structure. The sentence structure is object, followed by verb, followed by subject. Right, now for some examples. I'm going to use the same sentences as before, but this time in the passive voice. A delicious cake was baked by my sister. Do you notice how the structure of the sentence has changed? Now the object is placed first and the subject is last. In some instances, we can even omit the subject and say, a delicious cake was baked. Maybe we don't know who baked the cake. We just know that a cake was baked. Let's look at our next sentence. The lesson was explained clearly by the teacher. Again, we have placed emphasis on the object rather than the subject. And just like we could omit the subject in our first sentence, we can do the same for this sentence. The lesson was explained clearly. Let's take a look at the next sentence. A new product was launched last week by the company. Assignments were completed by the students on time. Same sentences as before, but this time in the passive voice. So now that you know the difference between active voice and passive voice, let's put what you learned into practice. For each sentence, you're going to firstly identify if the sentence is in the active or the passive voice, and then you are going to change the voice of the sentence. Let's look at our first sentence. The gardener plants colourful flowers in the garden. The gardener plants colourful flowers in the garden. Is this active voice or passive voice? Active voice. Now, can you change the sentence to the passive voice? You can pause the video to think about it. Colourful flowers are planted in the garden by the gardener. Now it's in the passive voice. All right, let's look at our next sentence. A fascinating book was read by Sarah last night. Is this active voice? Is it passive voice? Take a good look at the sentence structure. What's being emphasized? That's it. It's the passive voice. Now, can you change the sentence to the active voice? Sarah read a fascinating book last night. Now it's in the active voice. Let's recap what you've learned. Here are some key points to remember. Number 1, the passive voice is used when the focus is on the action and the receiver of the action rather than the doer. For number 2, the agent or the subject, the doer of the action, is optional and can be omitted in passive voice sentences. Number 3, the object of the active sentence becomes the subject in the passive sentence. Number 4, the form of the verb to be, so am, is, are, was, were, and so on, changes based on the tense of the active sentence. And our last point to remember, the main verb in passive voice sentences is always in its past participle form. So remember, both active and passive voices have their uses in different contexts. The choice between them depends on what you want to emphasize in a sentence. If you found this lesson helpful, please like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe so you never miss a lesson. See you next time.